So by now we actually had a look at a lot of different operators which we need in different situations in our code. Arithmetic operators for calculations with numbers, or in the case of the plus operator, also with strings. And also the assignment operator and these shorthands for incrementing or decrementing numbers, or for quickly assigning the result of a calculation with the plus or minus and so on operator. So these are things we had a look at. And in addition, we also had a look at these Boolean or logical operators, which we use to derive true or false. So roughly you can say where these arithmetic operators, plus, minus, the asterisk, the multiplication operator, and so on, where those operators helped us with numbers, and in the case of the plus, also with strings, which we could concatenate, these logical operators produce true or false, which we then in turn typically use in conditions. Now with that, we have a solid list of operators. But then we also have these and or operators, and these actually also are operators. Now, as you already see, not all operators produce the same result. Some operators produce Boolean values, true or false. Other operators produce numbers or strings. Now, there's more where we dive into, but one thing that already is important to understand is the concept of operator precedence. And for that, attached you find a link to this webpage on MDN which talks about operator precedence. In the end, this is a fancy term for saying how are operators handled, so in which order are they executed, if you will. And the good thing is, when we talk about plus and minus and times and the division operator, the normal mathematical rules apply. So for example, if you have something like 3 plus 2 times 5, the 2 times 5 is evaluated and executed first, and then 3 is added to the result of that. So normal math. And you can override that, just as you do it in math, by using brackets, parentheses. There you can change how that is parsed. And that is all built into JavaScript, and it works just as you would expect it to be. But of course, with the and the or operator, the question also is, which operator takes precedence there? And this article has a table, if you scroll down a bit, which lists the precedence of operators. And you can simply read that table from top to bottom, with the topmost operator taking the highest precedence, and therefore, unsurprisingly, that would be the parentheses. With parentheses, you can basically override the normal rules, just as we did it with the mathematical equation I showed you a second ago. Now, in this table, you'll find many operators which we haven't seen yet. Now, of course, needless to say that I'll dive into all the important operators throughout the course, but you will already recognize some of them. For example, if you scroll down further, you find type of, you find the exponentiation operator, multiplication, division, remainder, addition, subtraction, and there you can see that multiplication and division have a higher precedence than addition and subtraction, which is just what we saw in that equation I showed you a second ago. And if we scroll down further, we see that the Boolean operators have a lower precedence. The impact of that is that if you, for example, check if 3 plus 2 is smaller than 9 minus 2, then you will actually get true, because JavaScript will first evaluate this, and then compare the results. Because the addition and subtraction operators, which I'm using here, have a higher precedence than these comparison operators. Therefore, these calculations are executed first before the comparison is made. Again, that is basically what our common sense would tell us, and it's good that JavaScript behaves the way. It would be strange if the result of this would actually be, is 2 smaller than 9, and then we have 3 plus true minus 2? That doesn't even make sense, right? So we would expect that this is evaluated, and this is evaluated, and then the results are compared, and thankfully that's exactly what's happening in JavaScript. But of course, the question, for example, is if you have 5 equal 5, and you also want to check if 3 is smaller than 6, or if 10 is bigger than 20, well, in which order is that executed? Does JavaScript check this and then check the result of this comparison? Or does it check, is this true, and this true, or this true? That, of course, matters, because if we change this a little bit and we say, is 10 greater than 5, so this is true, But here, we check if 3 is greater than 6, then the result of this first comparison, if this would be executed first, would be false. Because yes, this is true, but this here, this comparison is false. So with the AND operator, where both has to be true to return true, this would actually return false. Now, as you can already see here in my IDE, we will get true as a result. So this already indicates that this is evaluated first, and then this. And if either one of these two blocks returns true, the overall condition will return true. And that's in case what's happening here. Instead, if it would be the case that this is evaluated, and then this would have to be true, then it would also work like this, but not, for example, if we check if that is not equal. Then, if we say this has to be true and has to be true, we would have a problem because this first part wouldn't be true. So what I'm saying here basically is that AND has a higher precedence than OR, and indeed that is what we see here in the table. The logical AND has a higher precedence than OR, which means that first JavaScript connects these two pieces and evaluates them, and then this operator kicks in and considers the second condition as well, which means that if this is true, we override the fact that this yields false. So you can always check this table if you're not sure about some order, but actually in most cases, as I mentioned, it's just what you would expect to happen. So definitely don't learn this by heart. There also are operators in here which are quite niche, which you will never use, to be honest. So don't learn this by heart, just take it as a reference if some behavior is unclear to you. In general, common sense is what's happening in JavaScript or what's getting applied there. And the one thing where you might not have an intuition is maybe that AND and OR thing. Well, there AND takes precedence over OR, which means first this is evaluated and then it's compared to this. And there the OR operator simply means if one of the two is true, the overall statement returns true, the overall expression returns true, and therefore this overall returns true because this is true, and therefore thanks to the OR operator, this doesn't matter, the fact that this is false, but still important to know this was grouped together because AND takes higher precedence. So instead of grouping together this was grouped together.